Hi, Moon Dancers, 17 Tarot. She's official on Instagram,
This is
y'all.
true.
She's here. Um, Thanks to our community, this whole Arcana family. We are so excited to be here with you today. This is a really potent, powerful time. It's said to be one of the year's most powerful celestial events. This Sunday, we will be experiencing a total lunar eclipse that will be lasting over 82 minutes of totality in the sky. So, what does that mean? The moon will slip into the Earth's shadow, glowing a really deep crimson hue. So, a fiery, the kind of famed blood moon. It'll be visible across Asia, Africa, and Europe, and much of the Pacific. So, we won't necessarily see it here in the States, but I'm sure people will be taking some epic photos that we'll be able to see. And Sydney, you'll be able to see now since you're on Instagram.
True.
How fun. We'll tag Sydney's Instagram so we can give her some love. Not only is this an astronomical marvel, but it's a deeply spiritual passage that has inspired awe and reverence for millennia. And so before we drop into the deets, the tea, let's drop into ourselves. I'm just like laughing because we're in this like kind of study room at the rec center. Our girls, I do too.
We're in
Our,
like a science lab right
our
now.
girls are in the child watch, so we can record this. And yeah, I like instantly feel like I'm 15 years
Mm-hmm.
old
Mm-hmm.
and like about to learn
Yeah,
algebra.
there's like a microscope over there.
Yeah.
We're gonna dissect some frogs.
It's awesome. I love it. Okay, so wherever you're at in space and time, just close your eyes, soften the heart. And I just celebrated my 35th birthday a few days ago, and in that celebration, we practiced this white swan kriya, and it's a really powerful kriya, and I think it's incredibly fitting, and didn't really plan it to be kind of in tandem with this moon, but as you are softening here, bring to your mind's eye the vision of a beautiful white swan just gliding over the water. The symbology of the white swan is it's this magical being that is the bird of wisdom and has the ability to separate milk from water. And what that means is the ability to separate truth from illusion, to separate what's nourishing from what's depleting. And that really, between the Hellenistic and Vedic astrological lenses, that is a theme, this theme of releasing and shedding the illusion, throwing into the karmic fire everything that's weighing you down so you can glide gracefully and powerfully across the water. That's this idea of not being dirtied by the messiness of life. And so we'll hold this vision of the white swan as we move into this incredible conversation on this super powerful portal that we're entering right now. We call in our angels, our spirit guides, our ancestors, so that this conversation can be of benefit to not only Sydney and myself, but for the entire collective. And so it is. Sydney, what is an eclipse and what is a total lunar eclipse?
Oh boy. Do you want like the legitimate explanation of it or like what it means symbolically?
Let's give me both of them.
Well, obviously it's when the actually, I guess I can't tell you exactly what it is physically. I can tell you symbolically what it is.
Okay, I'll take the physically. Okay, so a total lunar eclipse is when the sun, the earth, and the moon align in a straight line.
That's right.
And so the earth is positioned in the middle. So what that means is as the moon passes into the Earth's shadow, sunlight can no longer reach it directly. Instead, the Earth's atmosphere filters and bends the sun's light, scattering blue wavelengths and allowing only the reds and oranges to wash over the moon's surface. This is why the moon turns blood red during the totality of the eclipse. It's this haunting beauty that ancient cultures often saw as both omen and oracle. So, unlike the solar eclipse, which is fleeting
Mhm.
and often only visible on a narrow path, a lunar eclipse lasts much longer and is visible to the vast portions of the world. Energetically, it magnifies the intensity of a full moon, a time of culmination, endings, and revelation, while adding the shadow work of the eclipse. And I have kind of an interesting like perspective and experience on this particular eclipse. And so do you, which I'd love for you to go into. I actually just started my cycle today. And normally traditionally women would bleed with the new moon. Women that bleed with the full moon are usually a symbol of like healing or healers. And it's interesting because, this full moon is all about like releasing, shedding, and like endings. And it's kind of like I'm releasing, shedding, ending a cycle and beginning a new one. So I think it's really interesting that I've synced up at this time.
Mhm.
I always find that my cycle syncs up with the eclipses, like almost to the dot. Every single eclipse, I have started my cycle.
That's
And it's
crazy.
really interesting too, because I feel like I'm also usually like kind of by the turns of the season. And so this month I'm a little early because the new moon isn't until the end of the month, but I would just be kind of piggybacking that. So it's just interesting. And, if you track your cycle, I think it's something that's really helpful and just like the knowledge of yourself and kind of the path that you're on. And there's so much wisdom in knowing like if you bleed with the new moon, this is the meaning of that. If you bleed with the crescent moon, this is the meaning of that. If you bleed with, or rather like the crescent, if waning or waxing, the full moon, like it's interesting. And if you're a bleeding body, I highly recommend tracking your cycle. Is that something that
Yeah.
you do?
Yeah, definitely. I was waiting on the new moon that we just had before.
I love that you're synced
I
up
know.
like in full. I just think it's like obviously I love the moon. My business is called Moon Dance. And I just think it's super important. And that's something that we just weren't taught growing up
No.
was to track your cycle. Like I remember in high school and even in college, it was like, oh, fuck, it came again. And of course, you're like, don't have anything, you're not
Hmm.
prepared, you bleed through your pants. Like that's happened to me several times. And it's just like, I would always be so like shocked that it came. And as I've dove into Ayurveda, I've noticed that it's actually so empowering to track your cycle. And instead of like being defeated by it or grossed out by it, which I was in the past, like just kind of more annoyed by it,
Yeah.
it's now an opportunity to like honor it
Hmm.
and understand like, oh, this is why I'm a little more sluggish, or this is why I have more energy. And usually the full moons, you are ovulating. And so you would, I guess, technically have more energy. Since I am shedding this full moon, or I feel like I'm very depleted, like heavily dragging ass, but then it's like piggybacked on the eclipse, which I've definitely over the last couple of days have been feeling it.
Yeah.
Like even Wednesday, the day after my birthday, and we did the Kundalini class, like I was like dragging ass. So I'm super
It
glad
was
that
so
I
hard.
intuitively had already planned out like a more restorative Kundalini practice and the White Swan Kriya, but it took like a lot of energy to get there. And I think that in and of itself with this eclipse energy. Like if you feel very depleted right now, it's totally normal. And so we would recommend doing yin practices. We're just talking about yin the
Absolutely.
other day, restorative practices, yoga nidra, and we'll get into ways that you can work with and embody this lunar eclipse. But Sydney, will you guide us through the symbology?
I would love to. Well, first, I want to talk about how this eclipse is happening at 15 degrees of Pisces, and it's lasting like 5.5 hours, and the totality of it is going to be about a little over an hour. So this is like the longest lunar eclipse. I think actually the longest eclipse period that we've had since 2022, from what I understand.
Wow.
So, like we kind of were talking about before, a total lunar eclipse is sort of this gigantic full moon. And so the effects of this eclipse are going to be felt for quite some time after. I would say probably up to 6 months after the period of this happening. So
Which
this
is
is
interesting because then that would tap us at the Virgo full moon.
exactly. So this is a time where we can see a lot of changes, a lot of endings, and maybe even, a boiling point to a certain degree. So this eclipse in the sign of Pisces is known for its extreme sensitivity. So this is likely a time where we'll be a little bit more emotional, or maybe more so, than we usually are. So
Okay, I feel validated right now.
we've talked a lot in the past about how eclipses really bring about the shadow aspect of the sign that they're in. So, for the sign of Pisces, their shadow can often involve things like victimhood, delusional thinking, and often like substance abuse or addiction. So, just kind of themes of that is what we're looking at. So, these kinds of themes may really become more prevalent for us at this time. So, it's important to take note of them arising because this eclipse is allowing for, this giant release if we're willing to look deeply within ourselves about how these themes of victimhood, delusional thinking, addiction kind of show up in our lives.
I'm glad that you said that because I actually, for the most part, I feel pretty stable and steady, and I don't necessarily like succumb to the like cravings
Mm,
of my like past addictions. But I've noticed recently, like in the voided space, and I've been, it's like an ongoing fucking battle of like not scrolling. And so when I'm not doom scrolling, I'm really trying to like not do that and read. But I've noticed like the past couple of like weeks, I've felt like almost like these like temptations coming
mhm.
on, and I have to like really pull myself back where it's like, Mandy, you don't want that. That's not, it's going to be like a temporary fix. And then you're going to feel like shit after. You're going to be so mad at yourself that you did it. And so then it's like, okay, well, I'm going to turn on a Kundalini
Yeah.
practice and I'm going to do that, or I'm going to do a meditation or something that is, I guess you would say, a healthier samskara than rather succumbing into the unhealthy samskara. So it's interesting that you touched on that because I've been feeling that over the
Me
past couple
too.
weeks.
I am like in the process of trying to kick like my biggest vice, which I tried to do in the beginning of the year, probably around the previous Virgo full moon that you were talking about. Uh, and so we'll see how that goes because it's been like in the back of my mind for weeks now, and so it's just I feel like there's no better time than to try to do something like that.
Yeah.
But
And it's the time to like really purify.
right.
And in that purification, you begin to see more clearly.
Mhm.
And I keep reminding myself, your body is a temple, your mind is a temple, and right now you need to stay the course. Because this eclipse, like Sydney said, is like here to kind of rattle us and shake us. And um, the Pisces archetype is really this like archetype of blurring
Mm.
boundaries. It's kind of this idea of like swimming between reality and dreamlike. And I think that that's really like what's pulling me is like go to the dream world, like
Yeah.
go to the wavy world. And in the past, how I got to that wavy state was through substances. And now I have to be like, okay, just lean on all of your practices because I mean, Kundalini will get you there.
It's a drug.
It's just takes a lot of effort, of
Yeah.
which I don't have much energy right now. And so that it's like, well, it would be easier and more convenient to just, go smoke a joint real quick. But it's also like just this is where our lessons are. And this is where discipline, since we are in the sun sign of Virgo, this is where your discipline is like really tested. And to stay course is hard. And I've not stayed course for many, many years. And so, like you said, this is kind of the time to fucking do it, release it, and really step fully into all that this portal has to offer.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that the tarot pole for this is super relevant as well. We have the Nine of Cups coming in, which is obviously denoted by cups, which is water, which is also Pisces. So very, very emotional. But the Nine of Cups is like, this is almost I shouldn't say it almost is, it is a completion in a sense, but it's a very positive one. So this is kind of signaling to me, especially with what I just divulged about my want or wish and desire to release this vice of mine. This is saying that this is the perfect time to do that.
To do it.
This is the card of wish fulfillment. So at this time, the tarot is saying to us, if we are able to look at these things, these shadowy parts of ourselves that maybe we don't love and that we want to change, we can make that wish and it can actually come to fruition.
I love that. Yeah, my wish for my birthday, my mantra, goal, sankalpa, intention for this 35th year was to embody the white swan. And that's all about stepping into your wisdom, your grace, your clarity, your truth. And I think that as a like reminder that Pisces, like we said, is where the moon is currently stationed. It's illuminated. It speaks to surrender, empathy, imagination, and spiritual union. And across the wheel, this kind of axis with Virgo, it's grounding us in purification, in daily devotion, and crafting of order from chaos. And that is, I mean, that's like the metaphor of the white swan. It's like, can you glide over the waters even though the heaviness of the mud is trying to pull you down? Can you stay clean amidst the dirtiness of the world? And really, together, these two signs ask, what illusions can you let dissolve? And what practices can you refine to honor your truth? And it's interesting too, because the moon is trine to Jupiter, which softens the shadows with blessings of wisdom, optimism, and guidance. And yet, its tension with Mercury reminds us that words may not capture feelings, and mental chatter may need to yield to silence. So, kind of going back to that, like when I'm in that silent void, I'm like looking for something to escape. It's like doom scrolling or reaching out for something, and maybe I just need to sit my ass in some silence and see what the fuck surfaces. I was talking about this in my teacher training group yesterday. My teacher said that there was some like Ivy League school that did a study on if people were more afraid of death or sitting in silence with themselves. And there was an overwhelming majority that said they were more afraid of sitting in silence with themselves. And it's because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And, we move so quickly throughout our lives to avoid that exact feeling of sitting in ourselves with silence, because when we do that, then everything comes to the surface. And that's really what this eclipse is inviting us to do. Sit in silence and let everything bubble up. Keep what is strengthening you and throw into the karmic fire what is holding you back, what's weighing you down. This is really a time for you to honor by not doing, but by releasing, letting the divine order reveal itself through us, by not avoiding, by sitting in it. And although it's uncomfortable, but we know on the other side of discomfort is growth and evolution.
I love that. I love that. I want to talk about the Mercury and Virgo opposite the moon in Pisces, because this is another really integral part of the eclipse itself. You know, the sun and Mercury are in the logical and detail-oriented sign of Virgo, but it's directly opposing the very emotional and intuitive moon in Pisces. So the challenge with this transit is that you can feel this really strong pull between the head and the heart.
Mm.
And your Virgo side is going to want to analyze, categorize, and really find practical solutions for pretty much anything. But on the other side, the Pisces energy of the eclipse will be kind of urging you to let go of control, just like you were saying, and trusting your gut. So there's an opportunity here. The tension that's happening is really a gift. It's a force that's asking you to find some sort of balance. And so the Virgo energy can provide, this clarity and discernment that's needed to ground very powerful emotional insights that can come from this Pisces eclipse if you sit your ass in silence.
Hmm.
So it's a perfect time to make sense of your feelings and then translate them into, a concrete plan rather than getting swept away by the emotional tides.
Mm.
So there really is this like powerful Virgo energy that's coming in here as well, which is great because those are, these are those opposite signs that have a beautiful interplay as well. The Pisces people in my life are the most challenging people that I know, but they always make me a better person. Like straight
I'm
up.
just laughing because my 4-year-old is a Pisces and I'm a Virgo. And I mean, we're twin flames for sure, but god damn, does that girl test me. And it's interesting how you're saying the head and the heart. Obviously, the head is the Virgo and the heart is the Pisces because I mean, Poppy just like floats through life.
She's
She is
lovely.
usually not here in reality. She's in other worlds and she is so playful and imaginative that it really like softens my hard Virgo
Mhm.
mentality that I have. And so I know she was here to, you know, teach me. She is one of my greatest teachers, but it's just, I think it's interesting. And I love that you said that because the themes through a Hellenistic lens of this eclipse is unmasking of hidden truths. It's the purification of the waters. It's the threads of fate. The Greeks really saw eclipses as tied to the three fates who cut and weave the threads of destiny. So, what happens under an eclipse is rarely avoidable. It's woven into the cosmic fabric. So, here is that like avoidable, avoiding. Right now is the time you can't avoid. You just have to sit and let the shift happen. And this is really an opportunity for an entire collective mood shift. The moon symbolized the people in ancient astrology. So eclipses often coincided with changes in collective feeling, leadership, and public forms. And, a really great way to align with this energy according to a more Hellenistic route would be release rituals. I was talking to a friend about this yesterday. She's gonna have a bonfire this weekend and she's gonna like literally physically burn a bunch of her shit that just she doesn't want to take into like this next chapter of her life. And you can write down your burdens, your illusions, your emotions that you're ready to surrender and release, and then release them through fire, water, or burial through divination, which is where Sid comes in. The Greeks often saw oracles and moments of celestial omen, so using the tarot, astrology to seek divine messages. And we have the Nine of Cups here, but if you've never gotten a tarot reading before, I highly recommend getting one. And Sydney actually guides them and she's fantastic and wonderful. And so if you're interested, please check out her offerings because she can really bring some beautiful insight. If you don't have the time or the funds to do a tarot reading, you can always just use an oracle deck of your choice and see kind of what pulls to you. Sydney, if you could just like speak on if someone is pulling a card from their own deck or
Mhm.
what should they do prior to pulling the cards to really set themselves up
Yeah.
for like a beautiful self
I
reading.
mean, I think it's always important to like set the mood, set the environment, and make sure that like your intentions are straight. Because I think when you come to the tarot and you're presenting it with a question, you're inquiring about something, you really want to make sure that what you're inquiring about is the right thing, or that you rather ask it in the right way. But prior to that, cleansing the space, cleansing the area, whether it's smudging or, I mean, I love using Florida water, which is like this herbal elixir that they use like, it's like a hoodoo voodoo kind of elixir that's been around for a
Love
long
it.
time. You can use it to like clean floors, clean spaces. So I always clean, my altar space before doing readings with that. So I think that's really important, but just coming to the tarot with the right intentions, I think more so than anything, because I think people start to use tarot for the wrong reasons. And the most important or the most pivotal way that I've ever used it for myself is strictly inquiring about myself and, how I can evolve as a spiritual being.
I remember listening to a podcast that said before you read the kind of description of what the card is to like look at it first
Yeah. Oh,
and
absolutely.
see like what you see and are drawn to within the artistry of the
Yeah.
card.
I would say on that note, if you're thinking more so along the lines of how do I start to read tarot when I don't have any idea how to read tarot, the first thing that any teacher reader will tell you is that you go based off of intuition before you even understand the very complex meanings behind the cards, because these cards are so multifaceted. They have so many meanings and they can mean pretty much anything. It just depends on how you're being affected by it in that moment. So that's kind of intuition is the most important part in reading tarot. The knowledge of the cards, their history, and their various meanings, that is secondary.
I need to get better at that.
I told you I'm like creating a journal. So I'm like, once I'm done with it, I'm going to just hand it your way and you can read through it
I
and
love
see if it
it.
helps.
And Sydney is also creating a kind of workshop situation that will offer through my 200-hour training and then also offer as a training up through Sydney's website as well. I think it's interesting because according to Vedic astrology, the signs aren't as like important in Vedic astrology. It's more so the nakshatra, which is the lunar mansion.
Mhm.
And this particular eclipse is activated in the Purva Bhadrapada Nakshatra. And it's one of the most mystical and intense lunar mansions. And it's interesting because this nakshatra spans Aquarius and Pisces. And it's symbolized by the front legs of a funeral cot or a two-faced man, images that speak to duality, transition, and the movement between life and death, illusion and truth. So it's like with the swan and the Hellenistic view and Pisces and Virgo, it's like we have these threads of discernment between truth and illusion. And it's really the themes of this Purva Bhadrapada is this thresholds of and duality. So it's representing walking between the two worlds, the material and the spiritual, very Piscean, and really walking between the profane and the sacred. It's intense and transformative. It's associated with deep commitment, sacrifice, and the power to burn away illusions. So, when activated by an eclipse, it can feel like a karmic fire, revealing truths that can no longer be ignored, i.e., why it's so uncomfortable for
Mhm.
me to sit in silence right
Yeah.
now. The mysticism and depth known, it's really a more esoteric nakshatra, and it's really linked to knowledge, hidden teachings, and the intensity of spiritual vows. It's an unmasking and a liberation. The two-faced symbolism suggests exposure of hidden motives, dual natures, and contraindications, both within ourselves and collectively, which goes back to what you were speaking on earlier, where there's this, addictions or maybe negative samskaras or negative habits that we have resurfacing. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you're like, fuck, I thought I cut this fucking head off. And here it is coming back up.
Yeah.
And you have this, it's kind of interesting that I say that because it goes into the tale of Rahu and Ketu. And it's said that, Rahu and Ketu are the shadowy karmic nodes. And their story begins at the churning of the cosmic oceans when the gods and demons sought the nectar of morality. So this particular demon disguised himself as a god and he drank this nectar of immortality. The sun and the moon exposed him, and Lord Vishnu severed his head, but the nectar had already touched him, making him immortal. So his head became Rahu and his body became Ketu. So in revenge, Rahu swallows the sun and the moon whenever he can, causing eclipses. Yet because he has no body, the luminaries slipped free again, bringing light back to the sky. And so, what does this symbolically mean? Rahu is the endless craving and illusion. Ketu is detachment and release. Eclipses mark times when desire temporarily overshadows truth, but always passes, leaving us wiser.
I love
And so, the impact of this eclipse here is really allowing old attachments to burn away. Know that as we step into this weekend, shadow work will intensify, uncomfortable truths surface, sometimes with drama or intensity, really forcing this idea of honesty. Our spiritual awakening has an opportunity to deepen, and just in the Hellenistic view, a collective shift can emerge. So to align with this, you'll want to really embrace simplicity, reduce distractions, and commit to your inner work. Fire rituals, charity. This is a constellation that highlights detachment. So giving away possessions, food, clothes, money after the eclipse really magnifies this karmic release. And it kind of piggybacks with this idea of the white swan and of the Virgo of like cleansing and purifying and really purging your space of things that you don't need any longer. And so we're asked, like, where in my life am I living two-faced, hiding my truth or resisting transformation?
I can think of exactly where for me.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Same thing we've been talking about.
Yeah. And like you said, this is a time right now to commit to it and
Yeah.
to sever the head.
I just feel like if it's done now, it'll stick. And that's exactly what the tarot is saying too. It's like, this can be a wish granted if you want it to be, but you have to make the action. You have to make the choice. You have to do it.
It takes effort. And that I think is the thing that most of us, you want to like manifest all these things or you want to release all these things and you just want to like poof, it's done. And that's just not the reality. It actually takes and requires an immense amount of effort and energy. And so ways to really work with this eclipse. Traditionally, eclipses are times to avoid major manifestations and new beginnings. They really are profoundly supportive of release, reflection, and karmic clearing. So before the eclipse, clean your space, set intentions of release, and prepare your body. A lot of times, fasting or light eating is done maybe the day before the eclipse, or even the morning of the eclipse. And then during the eclipse, really staying inward. So practicing yoga, kundalini, meditation, pranayama, chanting, journaling, legs up the wall, yin, restorative, like stay inward, kind of like in this little cocoon. You can think of this as like we're the caterpillar that's like wrapping into the cocoon right now. And then the solar eclipse that will end at the end of this month, that's kind of us opening into the beautiful butterfly. So right now we're going into the cocoon. Mantra practice, or even just sitting in fucking silence. Visualization, imagining like a glow burning away heaviness and karmic residue. And I know you talked about this last podcast, but that's like one of your favorite visualizations is imagining your internal fire and then throwing all the shit you don't need into that fire. After the eclipse, have a release ritual, whether that be safely burning or burying a list of what you wrote down before. Purification, like take a bath or sprinkle water infused with herbs, that water you were talking about. Charity, donating things, giving things away. And this really teaches that after the eclipse, this magnifies the karmic cleansing. And then ground yourself. Eat a simple, nourishing meal, journal insights, take a walk outside, put your feet on the ground, lay in the grass, like whatever you can do to ground and stabilize yourself. This is a time of both awe and omen. It's a cosmic thread where shadow and light intervene. And from the Hellenistic lens, it's a wave of emotional release and divine counsel carried on by Jupiter's blessing. And from the Vedic lens, it's a karmic unveiling, a moment of healing, revelation, and purification. However, you choose to honor this eclipse through silence, mantra, ritual, or offering, remember it's not about controlling the energy, but about surrendering to it. At the moon's chrisman glow to reveal what must end so that the cycle of healing and renewal may begin again. Go out this weekend and do the work and let us know how it goes.
Yeah.
Comment on this video and let us know what you plan on doing, what you did, maybe like reflections that you had. And it'll be really fun because our next Soul Arcana episode will be the partial solar eclipse, new moon, fall equinox.
Thank you so much.
A few days after Sydney's birthday. And so there's a lot that we'll be able to unpack. So let these next 2 weeks be your cocoon. Go inside. And one of the things that I love so much about the caterpillar into the butterfly is that when the caterpillar goes into the cocoon, it completely turns into goo. It disintegrates completely. But what stays is its consciousness or its spirit. And then you're reborn into this beautiful butterfly that has wings and you can start to take flight. And so let this be a time. And when I say go out, I rather mean go into yourself this weekend and amplify and sit in the totality of who you are under this total lunar eclipse and just see what surfaces. Anything that you want to add to it, Sid?
I have nothing. That was amazing.
Well, my friends, have a beautiful eclipse weekend, full moon weekend. It's kind of fun because my husband and I had our first date on the full blood moon 2015. And so that was 10 years ago. And I remember we sat on my stoop just looking up at the moon, and it was so big and it was so red. And I remember thinking, like, this is my guy.
This is my
This
guy.
is my
That's so
guy.
cute.
And now here we are 10 years later. And it's interesting because we have not been on a adults, like just us parents trip
Oh yeah, you
in
guys are leaving
like
tomorrow,
two,
right?
yeah, we haven't been away just on the two of us for in like 2 years. And so I think it'll be kind of fun because it's interesting too, because Blake is not a woo-woo person in any way, but on Sunday, he had scheduled a facial and a massage for me. And then he got booked us a cabana at the pool. And I was like, God, I mean, like a legitimate day of like not doing anything. Like, how in alignment is that with the moon right now
Mhm.
and
And
how
exactly what you just said to do. Go into your
exactly
cocoon and have fun.
go into my cocoon. So it's gonna be awesome. And please share any reflections that you have over this weekend. We would love to hear from you. We'll see you all next time.